They're very, very pleasant people, artists, I think. I've always found that. I don't think you must try and dictate to them what they must do. I think that's fatal.
Now we're standing in front of John Piper's very large tapestry. When did this work come to the cathedral, and what's the sort of story behind it?
It was installed in 1965, and the story behind it is that when Walter Hussey came to the cathedral, the reredos screen behind, you can see elements of it sort of poking through the tapestry, because Piper designed the tapestry deliberately in an echo, actually, of medieval art to fill the niches.
So a little bit like panels, a little bit like
panels.
A triptych almost, or something
Almost,
like that,
yes,
like
it's
an altar
7 of
screen.
them, yes.
Yeah.
You can see that the screen is just dark brown wood. There was a smaller altar and reredos, but it was felt that that was completely out of scale, really.
Yeah, with the cathedral it's so large, isn't it?
And also with the screen, but the screen was dull. And so Walter Hussey felt that this sanctuary area, in a sense, the most special part of the cathedral, was dull and dreary, and it needed to be enlivened and enlightened. And faced with this huge space, what was he to do?
And it's so large, isn't it?
It's
and
vast.
so brightly coloured as well. It's a very bold move by Piper and by Hussey as well.
Well, the suggestion of Piper was made by a number of people, but particularly Henry Moore,
Right.
who suggested Piper. And one of the reasons he suggested Piper was, Piper's experience of working with other craftsmen in stained glass, but also his work in theatre design. Piper was used to doing backcloths for theatres, so he was used to working on a very large scale.
And he was very interested in churches as well, wasn't he? I mean, more of his sort of traditional, the work that you think of being John Piper are all sort of churches and cathedrals that he's worked in with, watercolours and prints and all sorts of things.
Yes, there's that sort of controversial move in John Piper's career when he turns his back to a certain extent on the modernism of the continent and begins a recovery of what we might term as romanticism in English art, and that's particularly associated with his work of going around the country and drawing churches and cathedrals and rediscovering that tradition, which he loved. So yes, he's acquainted with the interiors of churches and cathedrals and has a natural feel for them.
And I think he does do something that's so different here, though, as well. And I'm not sure if I always 100% understand it. I mean, we have a few preliminary drawings for this and sort of different ideas that came along for John Piper. And I know that a couple of the ideas were sort of rejected by the cathedral at the time, and then he sort of settles on this composition. And tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the 4 elements, is that right? So it should be...
It's a combination of things.
Right.
And herein lies one of the problems, because it's abstract and symbolic.
Yeah.
It requires quite a lot of background to be able to understand it. The central elements, I think, are fairly clear in that we've got a cross in the centre. It's a Tau cross, it's not a Latin cross, representing Jesus Christ. The flame to the side is the Holy Spirit, and behind it the triangle of the Holy Trinity. Now that was pretty well as Piper wanted it. It was only later that, in fact, the Archdeacon of Chichester said that the symbol of the Trinity, the triangle, couldn't represent God the Father, and Piper had actually, of course, left God the Father out. This was quite a late stage in the planning, so he was thoroughly cross.
Yeah, there he was.
Had to go away and work out
how to do it
represent
differently.
God the Father. And ran into a very real problem there, because, of course, within the Christian tradition, how do you represent God the Father? Well, you can't be figurative, because God is spirit.
Yeah.
So he represented God the Father by actually quite a traditional motif, which is that of the round white shape, which represents light.
Right, because when I first saw that, I thought crown of thorns. That was the first thing that I thought, sort of the crown of thorns, but it's God the Father.
It's God the Father as being represented as light.
Yeah.
Yes, picking up on, for instance, Paul's letter to Timothy, which talks about God who dwells in invisible light.
It's lovely.
And then also the 4 elements captured at the top of the tapestry, and the motifs at the bottom are motifs of the 4 evangelists.
Right. So do you know which evangelists they represent out of the four?
Well, we
is
can
it
see
a bull?
two from here.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's the bull of St Mark, and that's the eagle of St John.
Right. And you've got obviously fire above the bull, and you've got water, haven't you, on the right as well? And
the left-hand side with those, well, what I actually always think of as rather 1950-ish sort of motifs.
It is that sort of style, isn't it?
Even though, in fact, it was designed
60s.
In the 60s. Yeah. It's quite 50s in its representation. People always get confused as to which is earth and which is air and things.
Yeah. So what do people think about the tapestry today? I mean, you said sort of when it first kind of came in, it was a little bit controversial. I mean, is it something that people respond to well now?
Well, it was controversial when it came in. And famously, the Canon Chancellor at the dedication service wore sunglasses because he objected to the light.
So bright.
It's so funny. It remains controversial, actually. I came into the cathedral yesterday and spent a very happy hour talking to people. I made sure that I was talking to people who were here in the cathedral for the first time.
Yeah.
They'd never seen it before, and I simply asked them what they made of it.
It was interesting to hear what people say about different artworks, isn't it? Yeah, because you always hear something new.
And yes, you do. And more people disliked it than liked it. Some people really loved it. And when they loved it, they were able to tell me why. They were surprised to see something so innovative, so contemporary and abstract in a cathedral. And they were absolutely delighted. But even then, they were able to observe that they would normally expect to see something like this in a gallery, not in a cathedral. The people who objected to it objected largely because they didn't understand it.
Yeah. I think as soon as you start putting that work in context and you start talking about the history of it and how it relates to the cathedral and the collection and Walter Hussey, I think it really does give people a sort of very different understanding of how this work fits into the space as well.
Other people, of course, simply reacted to the vibrancy of the colours and were excited by it and said, no, this is absolutely great. It fills this place with colour.
Yeah.
And I think certainly in terms of coming into the cathedral from the west door, it draws you immediately. You can see it. It's a splash of red from the west door.
And even with the choir stalls as well, which I know are slightly out of shot for this film, but choirs are traditionally quite closed off. They're quite dark, aren't they? And actually, it does bring that vibrancy sort of forwards into the space, and it's so inviting, I think, as well. It's that it's warm colours. There's reds and oranges, and it sort of draws people into the space, which I think makes it more inviting rather than perhaps all the gold and sort of the riches that you often think about with sort of altar settings and cathedral settings.
So reception is still slightly
mixed.
Yes. And it does, and the other thing that I think is becoming increasingly a problem in terms of understanding is that as we live in a less Christian culture and people have an ever diminishing understanding of the Christian faith and of Christian art, the symbolism is lost on so many people. So the symbols are the four evangelists, and even if you use that term evangelist, no one knows what you're talking about. I have to say gospel writers. That's gone.
Do you think it matters? Do you think it can be understood and sort of appreciated on a level that's away from Christianity, or do you think you really need to have that sort of background knowledge and that sort of understanding, interpretation?
You can understand it just as art, I think, entirely. Standalone, it can be appreciated like that, but it is in a liturgical space. It's here. Its primary intention was not as an art object. Its primary intention is to enhance the worship of God. And if it's not doing that any longer, or if it's beginning not to do that, we do need to start asking some very serious questions.
Thank you very much.